The Grand Budapest Hotel is sadly the last Wes Anderson movie to be reviewed. That is, until his stop-motion film about dogs comes out, presumably in 2017. And if Anderson stopped making films after this, I would be satisfied. What I've seen from him and the, journey of reviewing his films has all been amazing because of his evolution. From humble beginnings in Bottle Rocket to the most overtly stylistic of the lot, Fantastic Mr. Fox, to the end with the Grand Budapest Hotel, I'm happy to say that the last film is the subtlest of them all. Perhaps also the Grand Budapest Hotel is the most plot-driven out of Anderson's original screenplays. It's a kind of cat-and-mouse chase film in a way. Wes Anderson said himself that he doesn't believe his films have plots, and that this movie was one that did. And I have to say that for his first plot-based movie, Anderson has done a really good job. Although the Grand Budapest Hotel does have the same cartoonish and fantastical elements as other Anderson stories, it's on a much larger scale, but the way the plot unfolds makes sense, and it doesn't detract from any depth in the character development. Anderson's screenplay allows the characters to drive the plot. It's not just a series of events that the characters just happen to be part of. The interaction between characters in the film is what drives new events to occur, and each character impacts these events in their own unique way. And on that, the variety of characters in the Grand Budapest Hotel is, in my opinion, much more expansive than previous casts. They all still hold an exaggerated, zany, and almost caricaturist quality, but the types of caricatures that the story presents are much more varied. The Grand Budapest Hotel is the first Anderson film to feature a villain of sorts, as well as characters like henchmen. And given that I'm so used to seeing the same actors playing similar variations of the same kinds of socially inept and awkward characters, these new character styles are refreshing. It's also cool to see the returning Anderson cast adapt to new characters, and better still that they can adapt so well. Ray Fiennes and Tony Revolori are the new additions to the cast, and they do a brilliant job, as does everybody else. The customary humor of Wes Anderson's films transfers quite well to this new set of characters, and I really like that about the Grand Budapest Hotel, and that it has refined the characters and the comedy. More refined still is the stylistic elements of the Grand Budapest Hotel. The use of 4:3 for a majority of the film really helped ground the traditionally very unique framing that Anderson brings to the screen. A 2.35:1 widescreen ratio allows more room for the symmetrical frames that cinematographer Robert Yauman creates to breathe. In other words, it's more obvious on a wider screen that each frame is set up in a very specific way. The tighter aspect ratio makes the cinematography much less obnoxiously stylized. Not that obnoxious was ever a bad thing. I just think that the more grounded characters of this film suit the subtler visual style. My memory of first viewing this film was, I think, slightly skewed, as I remember a much more monochromatic color palette filled almost solely with pinks and purples. But I was surprised with much more varied colors, and ones that were often not as bright as I remembered. There are times when the color is definitely ultra vibrant, but I found them to be few and far between. I honestly believe that if someone was unaware that the country of Zabrowska doesn't exist, they would be convinced it was a real place, because of the more realistic design features, and this more grounded color scheme. In addition to the 4:3 aspect ratio, the Grand Budapest Hotel utilizes many of the classic film techniques, like matte backgrounds and miniatures. The exterior shots of this film have a very similar aesthetic to that of Fantastic Mr. Fox. It adds quite nicely to the old-school, almost painting-like image of the Grand Budapest Hotel. Some of the footage is really obviously sped up in the name of comedic timing, which is ambitious, but not quite as well executed as it could have been, and there is some CGI that could have been left out, but besides this, I think that the Grand Budapest Hotel is Wes Anderson's most visually refined movie yet. The same goes for the score. It has the same bright and hopeful production as other Wes Anderson movies, but again, it's much subtler and more refined. The instruments chosen for music throughout the film are much softer than previous OSTs. Overall, I think the best thing about the Grand Budapest Hotel is how accessible and rewatchable it is. I'd watched it, I think, maybe twice before this review, and I watched it twice for the review. Partly because I fell asleep for the end of it the first time, and partly because I just really like the movie. It's really, really fun and entertaining. And the Grand
Budapest Hotel, 9 out of 10.